It's time to capture the flag. Yep, the NBA draft lottery is here, so we're going to find out where our Chicago Bulls will be picking later on today. But the question for today's episode is, will the Chicago Bulls find luck in the NBA draft lottery tonight? Y'all know we're going to talk about it, break it all down, but you got to hear the music first.
Cognac gang.
Shy Boys Podcast with the Cognac Boys. I'm Cognac Boy Bobby, and I'm holding it down on today's daily episode. If you're tuned in with me today, make sure you go ahead and take some time. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell as well. We trying to get that 8K, and we right there. So go ahead and help a brother out. Y'all already know. But hey, we know that draft lottery is later today. The Chicago Bulls, they currently sit at the 12th spot before things get to shape out and shift around to see where all the teams that is going to be involved between 14 and number 1 to see where they're going to be picking for this year's NBA draft. Now, the Chicago Bulls, they got an 8% chance of landing within the top 4 of this draft and just a 1.7% chance of getting the grand prize and capturing the flag. Now, if we look at some of the history, hey, the Chicago Bulls got some decent history when it comes to the draft lottery. You know what I'm saying? If we look at some of the lottery wins where they grabbed that number 1 spot, they got it in 99 and they selected Elton Brand. Then they got it in 2008 when they got my man's Poop, Derrick Rose. So, hey, I'm just saying, maybe, this is that time, maybe the basketball guys look out for us and we able to hit that money, hit that nail on the head, and we can go ahead and capture the flag. I'm just saying, NBA. Hey, for all my script writers in the NBA, if you want to do something great, why not have Cooper Flag in one of the best cities in the world? I'm just saying, why not have Cooper Flag in a large market with him and Matas Buzelis over there hoping? I'm just saying. But then we look at some other things in the past when it comes to the Chicago Bulls in the draft. Back in 2002, they had the number 2 overall pick, and then in 06 had number 2. Back in 04, they grabbed the number 3. Now, when they did fall out of that top 3, those two things occurred. That thing occurred back in 2000 and 2001. And if we remember a slap in the face, that was back in 2023 when we had to give up that pick to Orlando. And you just watch right there while Arturis and Mark Everly was like, oh, darn it. When we missed that, I believe it was a top 10 protected draft pick, and the Chicago Bulls had to go ahead and get that thing up to the Orlando Magic, and we were salty. I ain't gonna lie to you. But in this year's draft, the Chicago Bulls, they only got about 7 spots to where they can be choosing from in this year's draft. They can either go 1, 2, 3, 4, stay at 12, or move back to 13 or 14. So if you don't hear the Chicago Bulls name called between 14 and 12, hey, that means we in a top 4. Look, that stuff right there gets me excited, but I always got to bring myself down and be what me and my man C-Dub put out this weekend. Let's be responsible because anything can happen. We can very well fall all the way. Well, jump all the way. We're going to say jump all the way to the number 1 spot. But crazy thing is, we can fall from 12 to 14. I would say the best case scenario, hey, if the Chicago Bulls can land between that 2 and the 4 spot, the ultimate winner is the number 1 spot. And you already know if the Chicago Bulls get the number 1 spot, just go ahead and ship the envelope in right now. Yeah, don't even waste time with this. I ain't even going to lie to you. I don't care how it fits on the team. You go capture the flag and you go draft Cooper Flag. Now, if we stay at 12, I ain't going to lie to you. I'm like, MEH, is that how you spell it? Yeah. That's how it's going to be if the Chicago Bulls just stay at 12. Now, do the Chicago Bulls at 12 find some type of luck in that type of scenario to where the Chicago Bulls may get one of the bigs out of this who may fall down? maybe a Derek Queen, a Kaman Maluwap. You know what I'm saying? How are they feeling about Asa Newell at 12? It's interesting to see. We're going to see how this thing pan out. But again, as we always say, stay even keel. Let's be responsible. Now, what'll be a gut punch is if the Chicago Bulls fall to 13 and 14. I ain't gonna look, it ain't no crazy drop, but it's like, it's gonna hurt a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Like when you go and eat something wrong and then you got the BGs. This ass gonna feel. You like, oh my God, it just don't feel right. So I'm hoping that the Chicago Bulls get blessed by the basketball gods and we can strike gold. I ain't gonna lie to you, you know what I'm saying? But according to before we get up out of here, now that you know how things could play out, you know what I'm saying? There's a couple prospects who some people believe that could potentially be on the Chicago Bulls radar. One of those guys is going to be Thomas Sorber coming out of Georgetown. Forward, 6'10", 255. Last season, averaged 14 and a half points, 8 rebounds, 2 assists on 53% from the field, 72% from the free throw line. Look, I ain't saying, look, it's definitely a good prospect to look at if you are the Chicago Bulls. I did see that Liam McNeely is listed as a potential good fit for the Chicago Bulls. This is a forward coming out of UConn. Now, I will say this. He is one of those guys that got the clip for the way that the Chicago Bulls want to play. But on the flip side, I'm looking at how can we improve in other aspects on the defensive side. So if we are going to be looking at a guy like Liam McNeely, who's a guy that has been thrown out, I don't necessarily believe that he's on the Chicago Bulls list, but you never know with the Chicago Bulls because they always got to do something unorthodox. They was like, the Chicago Bulls are drafting Dalen Terry. We was like, who? We were scratching our heads. We heard about guys like Tari Eason. We heard about my big man down there in Utah. You can't remember it? Walker Kessler. That's what we heard. We were, doing our due diligence and looking at guys like that. Chicago Bulls said, we want Dalen Terry. Who is exactly what it was at the time that the Chicago Bulls was selected. But selected Dalen Terry, excuse me. But McNeely, he's an interesting guy. He definitely comes in with some athleticism. This is a 6'7" forward from UConn. I like the program of UConn. 14 and a half points per game, 6 rebounds, 2 assists, 38% from the field, 31% from the three. Now, they is classifying this guy as one of those guys that can empty the clip from the three-point line, but it's not really that intriguing when you see a percentage like 31% from the three. But hey, a lot of draft people have said this guy has a knack for drawing fouls and getting to the free throw line, has a quick release so he can be able to provide some range for the Chicago Bulls. That's just looking at some of those wings out there. Another guy that has been put out there to be on the Chicago Bulls list or saying that this player might be good for the Chicago Bulls is Asa Newell, forward out of Georgia, 6'11", 15 points per game, about 7 rebounds, 1 steal, 1 block, 54% shooting from the field, and then only 29% from the three. But necessarily, look, if you're looking at a guy that's going to go out there and get you some rebounds and block some shots and create havoc on the defensive side, I don't really care about the 3-point shooting for a guy like Asa Newell. Just me personally. I want the motor that this guy's going to come with. I want the defense that this guy's going to come up with, how he's going to be able to, you know what I'm saying, hold down the fort when all these guys are blowing by. You know what I'm saying? Blowing by some of these guards. You know what I'm saying? So trying to be respectful there. I ain't gonna lie to you. Trying to be respectful there. And we seen guys like Colin Murray Boyles out of South Carolina be inserted into the discussion for good prospects that could potentially be on the Chicago Bulls. This guy's coming from South Carolina, 6'8" forward, 245 pounds, about 17 points per game, 8 rebounds, 1.5 steal, 1.3 block. I like that for a big guy like that. He is on the smaller side, so that they, you know what I'm saying, as a power forward, but he is one of those guys that it can come out there and be a versatile wing type player for you, if that kind of makes sense. But hey, I think that it'll be very, very interesting to see how the Chicago Bulls feel about him. And definitely had a good showing during the SEC tournament. to where in one of the games versus Arkansas, he dropped 35 and 7 and then had 20 points and 12 rebounds in the loss to Arkansas in the SEC tournament. So it's very, very interesting to see how the Chicago Bulls are feeling about that. Then they looking at the guard from out of I don't know why they want to constantly put all these guards on my team. I'm just saying, like, you know what I'm saying? Kasparas out of Illinois. Look, I ain't gonna butcher the last name. Y'all already know we ain't even gonna do that. But the guard out of Illinois, look, one of the last games I seen out of him, I was not happy with how he played in one of those last games in the NCAA tournament. But this is a guy that can go out there and be a playmaker and a scorer for the Chicago Bulls. My question is can he be able to defend? I need the Chicago Bulls to have some focus on the other side of the basketball court, because I know that we love the offense. We need to start loving the defense as well so we can have a well-balanced team. And I'm not saying he can't come for the Chicago Bulls and be an outstanding player. It's just that I prefer to go out there and try to reshape and revamp the bigs, reshape and revamp my front court. Look at something or somebody that can go out there and give you a different type of profile in the front court for the Chicago Bulls. Let's just say, for the sake of discussion, Nikola Vucevic is going. You coming down to Zach Collins and Jalen Smith. Jalen Smith, he has more years left on that contract. You could potentially move on from Zach Collins, and then you can have, you know what I'm saying, your stretch big in Jalen Smith, and then, then you can have the more in the paint anchor type of big, just to provide that versatility in that front court. That's how I'm looking at it. And then one of the last players that has been placed as a potential fit for the Chicago Bulls, if he slides, because I think he's high on the list for a number of teams, but that's Kamon Malawak out of Duke. Y'all already know, 7'2", quick on his feet, can run up and down the court, block shots, get steals. This past season, only 8.6 points per game, 6.6 rebounds, 1.3 blocks, but really, really good field goal percentage at 71% shooting from the field. I like that for my big man. But I think it's going to be, man, the Chicago Bulls, if you want Kamon Malawak, you got to get in that top 4. Me personally, like, he could very well drop due to whatever it is. It could be a number of things. I'm not trying to put the bad juju out there, so I ain't going to say an excuse. But he could very well drop, and maybe the Chicago Bulls get lucky. But we'll see. Maybe Derek Queen will be a guy that could fall. And if Derek Queen falls, hey, let's get it. But it all depends on whether Chicago Bulls will fall. So we got to make sure that we tuned in, we locked in. We're going to be covering the draft lottery later today. We're going to be making sure we right there front row, watching to see what the Chicago Bulls are going to do, well, where they're going to be selected, and hope that the basketball guys send one in for your boy. Send one in for your boy one time. We know y'all don't want Cooper Flag over there in Utah. You want Cooper Flag up in there in Chicago. I'm just saying. That's just me personally. I feel like you need a young budding star, per se, to be in a big market. I'm just saying. That's best for everybody involved. For him too. I'm just saying. I don't know how y'all feeling about how he feel about Billy Donovan, but some of these players love Billy Donovan. But that's a whole nother discussion. But nonetheless, let's see what the Chicago Bulls are going to be picking tonight. I think it's going to be an interesting thing, because if they do end up in that top 4, anywhere between 1 and 4, things get a lot interesting. It's going to get real, real interesting in the Chicago Bulls at that point, and then they will have to move diligently to make sure that they pushing this thing in the right direction. I'm just saying, if you get in that top 4, you get number 1, hey, a starting lineup of Giddey, Kobe White, Montes, Cooper Flag, Zach Collins as the center. Screw it. We running. Let's go. Let these young boys hoop, man. Let these young boys hoop. But again, we're going to stay even keel. We're going to be responsible. We ain't going to get too high. We ain't going to get too low. We're going to wait to see what happens later for sure. But that is it for me today, y'all. I appreciate y'all for tuning in to another episode. Make sure before y'all get up out of here, you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and go ahead and hit that bell. And y'all already know, man. Thank y'all so much. Make sure you always see red, and y'all already know. I'm going to catch y'all on the next one. For sure. Peace, y'all.
Cognac. Gang.